Anyway, I didn't have my calendar here last week, so if somebody had asked me, I wouldn't have been able to go. Okay, I'm reading y'all information off of a couple of sheets because there's no way I could remember it all. I was elected historian for the Jubileers for this year, and next year we have a 2-year term as an officer. And so as we were going through the trip, I sat down and typed up a summary every day to go in our history. And then Ed went and said, hey, can you, sorry, I was not light enough on my tablet. Can you share? So you're gonna get some of that. Our president shared some facts and figures with us at our Jubal Chorus concert last Thursday. So I have Rick's summary as well. Ed so graciously drew them out for us. And my husband added, Santa Clara was where we spent most of our time, and added the bus ride in there, which was really long. So I'm just gonna start reading to y'all, and anybody who wants to ask questions, please ask.
By really long, she means 4.5 hours on a bumpy road.
Wow.
Wow. It was a really long travel day. It started at 2:30 a.m. 18 of us did not get our visas until we were in the air to Miami, which we didn't know we got them until we got on the ground because we didn't have Wi-Fi. After landing in Havana, we had a 4-hour bus ride to Santa Clara. And I wrote, it was really good to get in bed. I'm gonna add a Rick's summary. Rick says that God's plan moved forward despite and because of the Cuban government. The government originally denied all of our visa requests. And there were 2 planned meetings, October 1st and October 18th. Now, we left on the 16th. That they were supposed to meet with the Cuban government, and the government canceled the meetings. The first one they postponed to the 8th, and then the second one they canceled. On Friday, October 10th, the Friday before we flew out, several of the Jubal Ministry people and the Global Missions people were discussing last-ditch efforts to appeal the visa decision. Camp Kirkland is the head of Global Missions Project. He is, I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he is a well-known, a renowned musician and music arranger. And he started, I believe I'm right about this. He started Global Missions to take musicians into places that most people can't really get a toehold in, to share the music of God and with the people. And it's a way to get your toe in the door. And he goes to Cuba a lot. They know him down there. So Camp contacted Frank Fernandez, who is a Cuban concert pianist. He is well known in Cuba, and he has a high standing in Cuba because of his talent. And so he has played with Camp many times. However, he is not a Christian. But Camp asked him to help. Was there anything he could do? And so he agreed to speak with the Cuban government on our behalf, and within the hour was meeting with a person in the senior government offices. And he says at the end of that meeting, the government notified GMP, Global Missions Project, that a final answer would be issued on the Monday before we flew out on Thursday. Monday afternoon, we were notified that the applications had been approved. The rest of the story, as Rick puts in quotes, is that Frank is a non-believer, which I've already told y'all, to whom camp has had the privilege of witnessing. God used a non-believer to petition the communist Cuban government on behalf of JMI. Please add Frank to your prayer list. Lost my place. That the seeds which have been planted will grow, and that Frank will make the decision to commit his life to Christ. So, like I said, on the way to Miami, we finally got our, and we were supposed to print them to take them with us, our visas. And so we're wondering how in the world we're standing in Miami airport trying to, how is there Kinko's? And we were finally told by American Airlines that we had a photocopy of it on our phones, that was sufficient to get us on the plane. So we finally got there. The first full day that we were there, we were supposed to join the pastors' conference. There was a huge for them, pastors' conference at the Bethany Baptist Church. Is that correct? Bethel Baptist, thank you, babe. Bethel Baptist Church in Santa Clara. It's the largest church in Cuba. And there was a pastor's conference that was completely run by the Jubal Ministries people. And so we had two pastors with us, and we had what Sons of Jubal is made up pretty much music ministers. There are other lay people certainly, but there are a lot of music ministers in that group. And so we had plenty of leaders and participants. Ron, who was leading worship this morning, was our main worship leader. So they conducted a pastors' conference, and at the same time, some of the Jubilaires were doing a pastors' wives conference in that church. And there were some of the Jubilaires who were doing things with the children of the pastors. So everybody had a place to be, and nobody was running loose. The conference was a great success. While the pastors were being fed the Word of God and uplifted by our praise team, some of the Jubilaires conducted workshops for their wives. They had worship, devotion at the wives' conference. I didn't get a lot of information about what happened in the pastors' conference. But they had worship, devotionals focusing on and encouraging them in their role as being a pastor's wife, and made beautiful Psalm 23 bracelets. And I didn't get the whole story about the Psalm 23 bracelets, but they bought Pandora type beads, and the pastors' wives got to build their bracelets. And I think of them like, the salvation bracelets we always made in DBS. I think of them as being something like that each bead tells a part of Psalms 23. I have yet to be given the instructions for that and what everything means is the coming. But they did that as part of their devotional time, their devotional with the wives. Their time ended with a ceremony blessing the wives with the covering of Jesus. And the Jubilaires the ladies that were doing the program presented them with these beautiful scarves that they found. And they each had a scarf and a decorative pin to pin the scarves to their shoulders. And they presented them with the scarves around their necks and promises to pray for them. The pastors' wives, I know for sure, because the people that were doing the conference with them, shared that they were just so thrilled and encouraged and ready to go back and support their husbands and support their churches and continue running the race. So everything I heard was that everything that day was successful. We were supposed to go sing for them, and some glitch happened. So we ended up, those of us who were not part of delivering the conference, ended up just hanging around the hotel. The hotels. The hotels, we were split up into two big groups, and then two smaller groups were at Hotel 3 and Hotel 4. The two big groups were in resorts, which is a loose term for us. It was a resort for the upper class in Cuba, but it was a little bit below a Motel 6 in the United States.
Did you have a swimming pool?
Yes.
We did have a swimming pool, and it was full of those vacationing Cubans. And none of us used the swimming pool at our hotel, but we had, our rooms were like, we thought of them like tiki huts, and they were, there was, our room was here, our roommates were here, and there was a room kind of in between that was a living room area. Our roommates, the second night,
Yes.
lost their air conditioner. They came and worked on it, I believe a couple of times. You'll know in a minute why it took several times. They never did fix it. They wanted to move them. Well, we had so much stuff, and we'd already unpacked it, and it was all over our rooms. And they did not want to move and have to pack it up and unpack it again. So they said, no, we'll just stay here. Well, their room was here. The air conditioner for the living room was right there, blowing straight into their room. So what we did at night was we locked the outer door, and they left their bedroom door open so that they could get the air from that air conditioner, and they tested it out. Later in the week, our lights started doing funky things. If you turned on one switch, every light in the room started flickering. And you turned it off, and all the lights but one stayed on. And I don't remember there were different combinations thereof.
You couldn't turn the wall lights on, because then everything went dark. And then you could turn one light in the bathroom on, and everything went flickering like crazy. And their way to fix it is just beyond belief. You'll get to that in a second. But
I'll let you go ahead and tell that part. This is why we know the air conditioner didn't get fixed in the Lahan's room.
the maintenance man comes and looks at it and goes and fiddles with the breaker, which was where that other air conditioner was. That didn't work, so he comes back into our room.
Hang on, you guys will know. He went to the breaker and flicked it on and off and on and off and on and off while everything is going.
And we kept thinking, he's about to blow our air conditioner. But at that point, he comes back into the living room, there's a switch on the wall, and he does it again. About 40 times. How are you gonna fix anything doing that? And then, oh, we can't fix it, and that's it. But we suffered with one light that stayed on, and that was good enough. We lived with it.
And I had a little lantern that he bought me at Tractor Supply a couple of years ago that you can lift the top of it and it has LED light underneath. So that was how we took our shower. We took that into the bathroom and opened it up. But they wanted to move us also. They couldn't work on it while we were in there because our stuff was in the way. I don't think they could have fixed it, quite honestly,
Yeah,
because it was wiring,
That was like a Tuesday and they wanted us to move.
and we were
And we
leaving
said,
Thursday
we're leaving
morning.
Wednesday. No, we'll live with it.
Yeah, no, we were fine. So,
As long as you don't break my.
hotels in Cuba.
Did you have solar water heater or?
Yes.
Solar water.
So no hot water?
We actually did have hot water. There were some people who didn't. Now, the hotel in Havana, we did not have hot water at all. So, there's that. I understand some people in Santa Clara did not have toilet seats on their toilets. That was another thing.
Hey, in North Korea, we had squatty potties.
I know that I was reminded of
For
that
a toilet.
Thursday night. But they don't flush toilet paper in Cuba anywhere. So that was, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
that was interesting. We all had Ziploc bags with us.
Oh.
Yeah, because.
Yes.
No, we would put it in the Ziploc bag, and the trash can, in the public bathrooms, the trash cans were not in the toilet stall. Yeah, and we were warned of that. So we, like I said, we all went to the bathroom with our little bag.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was.
No, it wasn't funny.
No, it's funny. It's funny that you have to learn about that and then get prepared for that.
Yeah,
So that's funny.
Rick shared that.
Yeah.
So day 3, we went to Kybarian. I'm not sure I said that right. I don't think I say that right. Church, and it was in a little town somewhere between Havana and
See my little dots?
Santa. Oh, that's what those are. He's got dots around Santa Clara. Because almost every church we went to sing at was a 30-minute or more bus ride. The only one that was not was Bethel, because it is in Santa Clara. But the rest were in outlying towns,
All bus rides.
all
But
bus rides.
These were brand new buses. You
Like the buses that Tommy takes on trips
these were
to.
first class
Nice.
buses. There was
Yeah.
no complaint about those.
No,
Did they have
because,
AC? Y'all
yes,
could have lived there?
I
Y'all
know,
potty?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't, they didn't want us to use the
The bus.
bathroom in the bus.
Oh.
And one bus, I was told the bathroom wasn't working. But I had in my head a busted old school bus with windows down, hair flapping in the breeze. That's what I thought we were gonna be riding in. So I was so grateful when we got on those buses at the airport and thought, hallelujah, praise God. The tiny church in Kybarian, all the churches were cinder block. They had open air windows and they had no air conditioning.
Very tall windows so that you get to cross breathe.
There wasn't much cross breeze. The crowd was so welcoming and so warm, and they sang with such joy. I wish I have pictures, but I had no way to show y'all any pictures because tablet doesn't hook up to that. But they just sang with such energy, and they all sang. And I mean, they made so much noise that one night, I think one of our interpreters told Rick that our orchestra needed to play louder because the people couldn't hear the orchestra because they were singing so loud. That doesn't ever happen, does it, Tommy?
No. Not here.
We have to tell the orchestra, and John has to tell the orchestra at times to get quiet because they're overplaying the choir. when we sang we learned 2 songs in Spanish. When we sang the Spanish songs, it was loud singing in that room because they all joined in. And I didn't need to know one word of that song because they all did it. It was awesome. I learned it, but I didn't have to. The pastor brought a message and 17 people raised their hand accepting salvation. On day 4, we went to Bethel Baptist Church, which, like I said earlier, was the largest church in Cuba.
Largest Baptist church.
Yeah, it was, we called it the Crystal Cathedral because its walls were mostly glass. It was the only air-conditioned church that we sang in. And for most of us, that was nice. There were some of us, including the cameraman, who were in the very back where the biggest wall of windows was on the sun side. And it was hot back there, but those of us who were sitting right under the air conditioning were so happy. But there were about 300 Cuban people there who were all very enthusiastic in worship. Our pastor brought the sermon, and when he closed the service with an opportunity to pray, 30 to 40 people responded by raising their hands. At the end of the service, Rick Cook, our president, presented the Baptist Association leader with the money to plant 2 churches in the region. The team was very grateful to accept the gift, and then we made honorary jubals of their worship leader and their pastor. We went to Gethsemane Baptist Church and Plasatas. One of those dots up there, I don't know which one. This particular night, Donnie and I did not go to the concert because we had been told that afternoon, if you are the least little bit sick, stay back. If you have any problems in the heat, do not go. April has problems in the heat. Very first concert I ever sang in, I nearly passed out and had to leave the choir loft because it was warm and I got overheated, and so I don't do the really, really hot, and I stayed back. And at every concert, except for the one at Bethel because of the air conditioning, we had several jubals, men and women, who passed out in the choir loft or nearly passed out and had to be helped off. We had 2 doctors with us. One of them is the husband of one of the jubilaires, and he goes on to every concert and has gone on every mission trip. Dr. Ralph Warnock, love him. He's the one who attended to me the night I almost passed out and had to go hide out behind the choir loft. But I watched him the very first concert, and I was like looking at John where Kim is, and over where Rebecca is, Doc was standing, and I watched him look at every face in the choir loft as we sang, and he kept going around and around, checking for signs that people were getting sick. And he removed several people throughout the week from the choir loft. That's how hot it was. So I don't have much of a summary for Gethsemane because I couldn't find anybody who could give me information. They're like, oh, it was great. Details. But that particular place had been hard hit by dengue fever, and they were in the middle of dealing with the outbreak. And so I don't think there were as many people at that concert as at our other concerts. The next day we were scheduled to sing at the Santa Clara Theater, but at the last minute the Cuban government required that we sing only in churches. So First Baptist Church of the Trinity in Santa Clara offered their facility, and the Cuban government also said all your concerts have to be done by 5 o'clock, which meant we started concerts at 3 o'clock. in the heat of the day. All advertisement for our concerts was done by word of mouth. Every single concert. It's dangerous to print flyers. So they just tell everybody. So it amazed me that even though we had a last minute change of venue for this concert, the house was full. And there were people just busting it. It was also very hot. I mean, there wasn't, I don't sweat, y'all. One, because I don't like sweating. But two, because I just don't do, the Barbie doll, for those of you who know her, Barbie doll will say, and has said, I sweat like a horse. And she left every concert drenched. That's how hot and
Were y'all in your tuxes and formal wear?
no, we had just a short sleeve button down shirt. They were all blue, the guys and the girls, and we wore black pants. And the guys brought their tuxes, and the ladies brought their formal wear. But after like maybe the third concert, John said, we're going with casual attire for the rest of the week. So there was an eruption of applause when that announcement came.
So what were the temperatures down there, in the 90s? Or?
No, they were in the mid to high 80s, but
But the humidity.
so was the humidity.
Yeah.
And when you're in those buildings where there's no breeze, and you have all those people, I mean, this room is as big as some of those churches were. And that end is where we put 100 people sometimes
Wow.
to sing.
All that body.
Yeah. And then we started singing, and so there was all that vocal heat. Yeah. Hang on, let me see if there's anything from Rick to plug in here before I go on. So, let's see. Day 6 was a Wednesday. We got up on Thursday morning, got on the bus, drove 4.5 hours back to Havana. We Thursday morning got up and we had the better part of the day off, and went and did whatever we wanted to do. My little group went and toured Havana with a taxi driver who was fabulous. He told us so much stuff. He was so knowledgeable and had really good English. There were a couple of times we were pantomiming stuff, but mostly he knew a lot. But we sang.
He was an accountant though, wasn't he?
He was an accountant who,
Had to make his living driving a taxi.
yeah. And that's the story with a lot of the people there. They have experience in what would
Doctors.
be a good job here in the States, but there's no work. But on Thursday night, we sang in the Teatro Fausta, which was an old theater in Havana that was currently being used by Calvary Church. There was had been an explosion in the church before. The explosion was at a hotel. I need to change that sentence. The explosion was in a hotel that shared a common wall with the church, and it damaged that common wall. So the government gave the church the theater to have their church services in until their church could be repaired. The explosion happened 3 years ago. So they may be in that theater forever. It may become Calvary Baptist Church. But when we first got there, and y'all need to understand if you don't already, Jubals don't get there half an hour before the concert begins. Jubals here in the States, Friday, our concert started at 7 o'clock. Our rehearsal began at 1, and we rehearse all afternoon. We did not do that at Cuba, in Cuba, but we were there a couple of hours before time to begin the concert. So we're watching, and there's nobody coming. And other concerts, there were already people coming when we got there for rehearsal. And by the time we sing, it's pretty much a page of music. It's the end of a song that we sing in full later in the concert, but we start the concert singing that song. It's called All the Praise Belongs to Jesus. By the time we got to the end of that short little one page and the concert was ready to begin, the room was full. From somewhere, they all came. It was just amazing to me to see it go from almost empty to slap full. The Cuban people love music, and they knew many of our more contemporary songs in Spanish, like Living Hope and Forever. I'm looking at my music. Oh, it's a Chris Tomlin song. Tommy, what is it?
Is it called Forever?
What? No,
We used
it
to
has
sing
Forever in the title, and I am bad with titles.
Holy Forever?
Thank you, yes. Holy Forever. I have a really bad memory for the title of a song. They sang in Spanish while we were singing in English. And this was not the first time. They did it at every concert. And it was so cool. They sang with such energy and such gusto. That it was just wonderful, just as wonderful at the last concert as it was at the first concert. They sing like Jesus is standing in the midst. Imagine that. They put American churches to shame. It is just amazing. They have so much less than we do. They have so much less to be joyful about in life in terms of material. And they just love Jesus. And it shows in everything they do. And my summary is almost over, but Rick gave me lots of details, so I'll come back to that. It was a long, hot week. We were challenged by the heat, by illness. 90% of the Jubals got sick with one thing or another. I went with a cold, I came back with the same cold. And so it plagued me. I had a little bit of stomach distress. Donnie had sinusitis that started Sunday night and lasted for 2 more weeks. His never lasts that long. And I'm sure that it was the environment we were in that made it linger, but he also had stomach distress. And the ones that are here are having intermittent problems. He's run a fever periodically, like he'll have a fever for the evening and then be 2 or 3 days and then he'll have the fever again. Lost 23 pounds, not me, I wish. He lost 23 pounds on this trip.
Could be a discrepancy between the doctor's scales and my son's scales, but still.
You lost weight.
He lost significant weight. I was noticing how baggy his pants were when we went and bought groceries Friday.
I quit eating about Tuesday, and I don't want to see rice and beans for the next 6 years.
And the food at our resort was not bad. It was pretty good food, but every meal had rice and beans. And there were usually 3 different kinds of rice, but one of them was rice and black beans, which honestly I grew up eating because I grew up in Key West. There were a lot of Cubans in Key West back then. But when that is there might be a vegetable on the buffet on the buffet line, but there was
Something
gonna
you-
be rice.
Or something you didn't recognize.
Yeah, or something you didn't
If I
recognize.
had to sum it all up, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Because the heat was miserable. But you also had the discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. The Bethel Church was probably an upscale church. And you had one of those,
They were the rich church, that's
Oh.
what the Cubans said.
you had one of those old 50s cars out there, and parked right beside it was a BMW X5, probably $80,000 car. The hotel we stayed at when we went back to Havana was right on the water, and I mean literally on the water. And beside it was a house that's being constructed, 2-story, concrete, swimming pool in the backyard, and then a courtyard between the swimming pool and the water. That'd probably be $1 million house anywhere else, but there, who knows what it costs. But it's definitely the haves and the have-nots.
And the people we saw in Santa Clara, I don't know where the rich people that go to Bethel live, but the houses that we saw as we traveled in that region looked like the Gaza Strip. They looked like they had been through war. They were in such disrepair. I was thinking last night, a lot of those houses that I saw as we drove down the road could fit inside my bedroom. I have a large bedroom, but those houses could fit inside that bedroom. They were so small. They didn't have air conditioning. They lived without air conditioning.
One of the things at the hotel was so aggravating was you gave them the passport and you come back later and they would give you your passport, and the passport had the Wi-Fi in there. And the reason they did that was so that they could monitor what you did on Wi-Fi on the internet. And
Yeah,
they did
everybody
that-
had an individual Wi-Fi
Yeah,
password.
it could track you
So they
into
could
your
track you.
hotel room.
Yeah.
So the government was watching.
We were challenged by the Cuban government restrictions. Although we were told last Thursday that the Cuban government wanted to impress the Americans, that they almost didn't let in. So they told the people in charge of the power grid to make sure that the places we were singing that day had power and didn't have a power outage. And we had moments where we lost power, and fortunately for us, it only affects our electronic keyboards. Everything else can go without, especially if they have a piano. Everything else can go without power. But they told them to divert the power to where we were so that we didn't lose power, because they wanted us to have good impression of them. Which we don't. But we had difficulty coordinating. We went down with a plan, and before we got feet on the ground, that plan had been changed. By the time we got to the first morning, the plan got changed again. And every day the plan changed. They would figure out how to work within the constraints that we were given, and more constraints would be applied. And as Rick said, we were surprised at every turn, but God was not surprised at any of it. And He provided for all that we did.
Wasn't it Rick that said something about, of all the people that went, nobody complained?
Rick and John both. Okay, guys, we took 220 Jubals. You know, there's some complaining people going on in that group. I know the 5 people around me and I complain about things. At a concert here at First Baptist Noonan, which is a fabulous church to be singing in, not one soul complained. I mean, we complained in our room to each other, or our roommates, we complained about their air conditioner, we were fussing about that. But, and this is a first on a Jubal mission trip, that nobody has complained to the leaders. They heard not a word. We used WhatsApp. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that app. However, at our hotel, the only place we had Wi-Fi was in the hotel office. So you can't get messages on WhatsApp unless you got Wi-Fi. So we had a great deal of difficulty communicating between the 4 places that we were and where our leaders were. And our leaders were spread out, but they were having trouble communicating with each other. Our translators were the best. What? There's a clock in the back.
It's
It
not
doesn't
correct.
work.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
I forgot a battery again.
all right, I'll cut it short. So we'll go straight to Rick's facts. Where does it start? Okay. 220 Jubilaires departed for Cuba and 220 were brought home. The major highlight is that 125 people raised their hands, indicating that they had committed their life to Christ during our concerts.
The best of times.
The best of times. We planted 2 churches through a donation of $7,500. We also donated $7,000 to cover. There was a painting project that was to happen, and that got canceled. But as Rick said, it probably wasn't a good idea for us to be out there painting in that heat and humidity anyway. It was a huge job, and that we did not know that in advance. But we gave them the money to buy the paint, to paint the exterior of a school near Bethel Baptist Church, and to install exterior lighting. We gave lots of people aid, lots of the Cuban people aid. We gave 3 doctor suitcases that were left with the GMP doctor contacts. We took stuff like IV fluids and splints and stuff like that for our people. Our doctors had them there for us in case we needed them, and nobody needed them. So we left them with their doctors. We gave 4 suitcases full of glasses that the Lions Club cleaned and repaired and identified strength of for us. And I've told y'all this, the numbers changed, but it's 36 suitcases of OTC medications that were given to each pastor of the churches that we went and sang at.
These are full-size suitcases
Yeah.
too, not little handbags.
You're going on a cruise for a week suitcase. At least mine going on a cruise for a week suitcase. There are 2 major Baptist associations, the East and the West. We were in the West. I always have to look at it. The director of the Eastern Baptist Association took a bunch back with him to the East, and he stopped and dropped off medication as he went. They took 7 suitcases of Salvation dolls, 2 suitcases of dresses, 5 keyboards and stands, 5 guitars, 2 suitcases of food items and clothing, 5 suitcases of pastors' wives / kids items that they used in the pastor's conference. 10 personal instruments at least were left in Cuba, along with reeds, valve oil, bow rosin, large amounts of personal clothing. The Jubals have a habit of leaving behind a lot of their clothes in their hotel room for the people who come behind and clean up the hotel rooms. They also, there was an arrangement with the mission partners to leave stuff with them. So there was a lot of clothing and personal items left. Okay, that's not part of the trip, that's just Jubal business. I just want to end by saying all the praise goes to Jesus. Donnie says it was the best of times, and the worst of times I say it was awful and awesome. There was some good work done through the Lord, for the Lord. That's it.
Well, y'all heard me talk more in the last 10 minutes than you have in the last 20 years.
I figured
I'll give you something. I'll go back to my old self.
Little bit of history.
He kept the hurricane too, down in the.
Yes, he did.
Eastern
Yes,
and
he
western
did.
Cuba is split right out
The
there.
whole
We didn't
time.
know about it until we were ready to fly out.
Southern Baptists have been in western Cuba forever. And somewhere when we started sending missionaries down there, the Southern Baptist Convention and the North American Baptist Convention took on Cuba. And North American Baptists took on Eastern Cuba. Southern Baptists have been in Western Cuba forever. When Obama was president, Eastern Cuba, which was pretty much all the North American Baptists took over took on Eastern Cuba, they never did anything. So when Obama was president and some of the relations were thawed a little bit, Eastern Cuba pastors reached out to the Southern Baptist missionaries that were going down there saying, could you come into Eastern Cuba? And everything that's done in Cuba is through the Florida Baptist Convention. And anyway, I actually spearheaded the movement into Eastern Cuba and did the first trips going in there. But yeah, that line is right about there. We were working at a whole Keenan down in this area. The people were awesome.
Yes.
And to think in its second world to third world, you think.
Yeah, we were in third world.
Yeah, it's second to third. Parts of it are third, parts of it are second.
Right.
The people in Cuba are very resilient. They're very smart. Most of them are very well educated. Everybody gets an education in Cuba. The problem is they can't get a job. And that's why you got people with engineering degrees driving cabs and stuff like that. I would never want to go there as a vacation. I don't know why anybody wants to go to Cuba for a vacation.
One of the leaders that we had, we called him the Godfather because that's what he looked like. You know, the singer
His name was Elio.
the singer Pitbull, that's who he looked like to me. He's from the eastern side, and he has already asked us to come, the Jubilaires and so forth, he's already asked them to come back.
Yeah.
For
He was at our
And
conference.
honestly, the farther west you go, the farther east you go, the less pro-Castro they are. You know,
The farther
when you're close to, when you're close to Havana, you kind of have to be pro-Castro. But the farther east you go, the less hold the Castro government has. But they also venerate Che Guevara. He's the big hero. But anyway, thanks for sharing. If y'all want some history about it, I can share a lot of history because I was really involved in the work that Southern Baptists do in Cuba. And like I said, you can go. You have to go, if you go that, you have to go on a mission, on a Christian or religious visa. It's against the law. You can get in a lot of trouble going there as a mission, as a tourist doing mission work. That's a good way to end up in prison and staying a little bit longer than you want to.
We had some of our people who had to go in on a tourist.
That had taking life in their own hands.
Mhm.
But the reason they do that is so they know what's going on, and they